So you're working on a banner, and in the background, you want to have repeating logos. You often see this when someone's giving a speech, for example, for an organization. They have a back wall where the logo or logos are repeated. Well, I'm going to show you really quickly how you can create a repeating pattern of logos on the back wall. Again, maybe it's for a banner or something like that. So let's do that right now. Let's go over what we have here. These shapes I've created just to kind of be mock-ups for logos. So let's just say that organization 1 has this as their logo. Organization 2 has this one, and organization 3 has this. And I've gone ahead and created these shapes. I've grouped them in Command G or Control G if you're on a Windows computer. Just kind of got them all in their own little groups here. Again, just to do a mock-up of a logo. Just trying to get you to understand the basic concepts for repeating patterns here. Okay. So we got these. I'm going to line these up just the best that I can, just to kind of get them where I think they should go. It's looking pretty good. We're going to make adjustments to it anyway. So I have these 3 logos. I'm going to have them repeat in the background eventually, but let's work on the pattern first, and then we'll go ahead and we will put that pattern into play. So let's take the selection tool, the black arrow tool from our tools panel over here on the left, and let's select around all 3. We're going to come up to Object, and we're going to go down to Pattern, Make. So Pattern, then over to Make. So submenu, and we can see that we're taken to this screen. Now, if you've done this for the first time, you'll probably get a little dialog warning box that just says that, you know, this is the way that you're going to create this. Any changes that you make are going to be reflected, that kind of thing. Just click through, hit OK on that, and you'll be taken to this. So we're going to look really quickly. I got my swatches panel open here, because what it does is it creates an actual swatch. So in our color swatches here, we see down here, new pattern, and we see these tiny little 3 symbols, and those are actually the ones right here. Those are the 3 objects in this pattern. So I'm going to name this, I'm just going to call it logos in my pattern options box here. So let's take a look at this. What are we looking at? Well, we can take these 3 objects and create a pattern out of it. And if we select certain things here, if we check certain boxes, we don't see any changes here, but these do have an influence over the pattern that you'll be making. I'm going to keep it very simple, keep those unchecked, and show you how you can very quickly create a pattern. So we have this first object. This is logo 1. I am going to click on it with my selection tool, the black arrow. I have it selected, and then I'm going to hold down my Shift key after I start dragging. And I'm going to drag to the right just to create some even space between this one and the repeating logo over here that we see on the left-hand side of this object. So what we see there is just basically a repeat of what we get over here on the right of that object. So it's kind of faded out in the background. That's just so that we can see the 3 objects here that are creating the overall pattern. So this is kind of showing you instances of that. Let's go to the center here, select that object, hold down the Shift key, and we hold down the Shift key just to constrain it to the horizontal axis so that things don't move up and down. So for example, if we were to move it like this, you'd see I'm not holding down the Shift key, so I'm able to move it around any way I want. Let's go Command Z a couple times. There we go. And then let's hold down the Shift key as we start dragging. And we're just going to try to eyeball this. Get the logos. You might have to do this anyway, because logos, they're all different sizes, different orientations, that kind of thing. Now that we've got that, we want a little bit more of the height to this pattern. These are in nice rows, but we want them to look a little bit more even, the spacing. So I'm going to come over here to height, and I'm going to type in 1.25, and I think that's getting close. The rows are a little bit too separated here. I'm trying to get things a little more even, so let me just put it in there. Let me type in 1.15 in this case. Now you'll have different values that you're going to want to play around with. So I've changed the height. You can also do that with the width, but we're not going to have to do that here. And then I also just have it set to a standard grid. If you were to do something like this, hex by column, hex by row, you can see how that changes things. But we're keeping it very simple. This is not bad, brick by row, because they kind of overlap that way and repeat. It makes it more interesting. So play around with these and see what you get. I'm just going to keep it a standard grid just to show you the basic concepts. And now that we've created our pattern swatch, that's everything inside this blue line in the rectangle here, I'm going to double click anywhere outside of that blue line. So anywhere outside of that pattern swatch, double click, and there I have it. I have the objects that I originally used to create this pattern. Okay, so here's what we want to do, because we didn't see any pattern created. There's nothing created. It doesn't look anything like we want it to, where they're repeating on a banner. So let's go ahead and do the next part of this. We've created the pattern. Now we're going to move into actually creating the banner. So let's select all these objects, and I'm just going to move them off onto the pasteboard, this area outside of the artboard. And I'm going to create now a rectangle, and you'll see why here. Let's do that. Let's select the rectangle. I'm going to double click this question mark. And that's going to bring up these colors. I'm just doing that so I can see a color fill in the rectangle. Oh, I don't want to do that. I want to make sure nothing is selected first. Let's just double click, and we got a good yellow fill here. I'm going to go to the rectangle tool, and I'm going to hold down Command U, or just Command U. I'm going to select that, and that's going to put this into Smart Guides mode. And what that allows me to do is kind of snap to the edges, so I know that I'm right on the corner, and I can draw out a rectangle, and it will snap down here to the lower right-hand corner. So upper left down to lower right, and then I will hit Command U. If you're on a Windows platform, that's Control U, and then I'm out of Smart Guides mode. So there's no more snapping of things. Okay, so I have this selected. Let's open up the swatches panel over here on the right. If you don't see that, come up to Window and go down to Swatches right there. And you can see down at the very bottom here, somewhere in the panel, you'll see the logos pattern that I created. And if I click that, I get the pattern. So we see some of these are going off of the edge, and we don't want that. So we can simply crop in this pattern area by doing really a pretty easy thing. But let's just say we want to change the scale of these objects a little bit. We like the positioning, we like the pattern, but we need them a little bit larger. And maybe we only want a few of them. We only want them this area in here. Maybe we only want them to repeat one time rather than this many times. So what you could do is you can come into the scale tool, select that, come into the center. If you're on a Mac, hold down the Option key. As you click the left mouse button on a Windows, it's the Alt key, and click that left mouse button, and that will scale things up a little bit. Now, I don't like that it scaled the object. So I want to uncheck that because I don't want to change the outer boundary of things. So when I uncheck that and I have preview checked here, I can see that now it has scaled things inside. It scaled the pattern inside of the box that I drew. And if I come in here and I'm going to use my mouse wheel and I increase that, I can see things go up a little bit in value here, in size. So I said I wanted just 3 in a row. Well, let's see. I said I wanted them to repeat one time. So we have the first instance, and then it repeats again here, every row. All right, so I got that in place. Let me just hit OK. And then to easily change things, there are several ways to do this, holding down shortcut keys and that kind of thing. But I like to just take my direct selection tool, select the outer rectangle, just like this, and then holding down my shift key. Let's see, what do I want to do here? Do that again. Select the 2 points, and then while they're selected, hold down my shift key, make sure they're both selected, and kind of move to the right here. And what it will do is kind of mask things so you won't see them anymore. They're still there, but we're just kind of pulling in or cropping in the edges. So let's select this top one, shift click over on the right one here. So these are now selected. You can also just drag around them if you want to. And then hold down my shift key. It's just so that things stay vertical here as I'm moving. So the shift key constrains to horizontal, vertical, or I believe 45 degrees by default. But yeah. So let's just select these over here. And I do have a couple of instances. It actually looked okay. I could just leave it. And then the bottom here, let's just do that. Select that point. Oh, let's see. There we go. Select that point and that point by dragging over, and then just kind of pull up until they're out of view. And now I can take my selection tool, select it as a box because it really is just a fill that we're looking at here. And I can move it up like that. And I can also change the scale by doing Option Shift and move it around a little bit. So the direct selection tool here was kind of used to crop things in, almost mask them out. And now we have repeating logos in place here. Now what's great about this, I'll leave you with this last point. What's great about this is if you come into the swatches panel, and let's just say we have one of these organizations, they've dropped out. You can take this, I like to do this, I like to take the original swatch and then create a copy of it by dragging it over the plus symbol down here in the swatches panel. It will create a copy of it. I'll select this now, and then I will actually apply the copy, which is called Logos 2. It made it Logos 2. I'll select that. I don't see any changes. I'm going to double click on it now, and that will take me back into the tool pattern options to allow me to make adjustments. So let's just say the second organization, they dropped out. So you can see when I delete them after selecting it, things don't quite line up. You can take this and move it over a little bit more that way. A lot of people will just do size tile to art like that. And then they'll come in and they will make adjustments again to the height or the width. So you can see I'm just kind of using my mouse wheel here, and they'll just make the adjustments that easy way. So it's kind of like they're resetting things. And you can see like that. So I'll double click, and now my pattern is updated. I may have to go back in and scale the size of it again, or use my direct selection tool and crop out a few that I don't need. So I just have these two organizations. I'm just going to crop them to where I like it. You can do it that way too. Let's do this down here. I'm going to try to keep the original proportions here. And there we go. I have the logos repeated several times. I think 4 and 4. They both are shown 4 times in the top row. So I'm just going to hold down my Option key, Shift. That'll allow me to scale from the center. I'll reposition things using my selection tool. And there we go. So this is kind of the back wall of logos. You can change the spacing. You can play around with those pattern options, get it to what you like, and then you can go from there. So I hope this helps you.